Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. How to reimagine your legacy as a gifted person. Hi, friends. It's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, and I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Sarah Nolan, and she is a real estate entrepreneur that's doing some amazing things, not necessarily what you would think in the typical real estate market. And I met Sarah in Las Vegas, and I had the pleasure of being a co-host interviewing her on a show. And as she was speaking, I'm like, oh my, I have to know her because she's not the typical real estate person. And her mission and her legacy and what drives her is far beyond what one would think. So I say, go get your tea or coffee and listen to her because I was so inspired co-hosting a show before. And now I get to talk to her all by myself because what I believe is that as a gifted person like Sarah is, who's very intuitive and empathic, that she brings something to the table in the real estate market that others do not. So listen in and see how you can let her story inspire you. Sarah, welcome to Someone Gets Me, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to be here with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Dianne. It's such an honor to be here. And, when I met you and I heard part of your interview, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never hear people talk about giftedness. Like, I feel like people are afraid to talk about that. And then here you are, an expert in working with gifted leaders. I'd never met somebody like you before. So I felt the same way. Like, I can't wait to meet her. We hung out at the hotel room and I got to have a little time, and then I could not wait to be on this podcast with you. And so I'm just really glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was such a fun synchronicity of events, yes, meeting each other, right? It was delightful. Yeah. So I want to start out with asking you to tell a little bit about, everybody knows what they think about what a real estate person is, right? Mm-hmm. They have this like picture in their mind, and that's not you completely. You do those things, but there's more to it. So help everybody understand how your intuition and your giftedness plays a role in your work in regenerative real estate. And you may want to define what that even is for people as well.
So, I was actually thinking about this earlier today, and how when I was a teenager, I could not wear clothes from the store. I had to buy them from the thrift store, and I had to reimagine them and make them my own. And I remember a therapist said to me once, we probably had like 2 actual conversations, and she said to me, you just like to do things your own way, don't you? I'm like, I do. Yeah. And it was like that kind of aha, like, yeah, look at this. Like, I cannot get myself to just go to the store and buy pants. I have to get used pants, cut them apart and put them back together, and then I'll wear them. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken with everything. And when I started my real estate career, I gave myself some guidelines and made kind of some rules for myself because I switched out of a career that I loved, and it was like my life purpose. And I was like an executive coach working with productivity and performance and helping people overcome traumas and anxieties and fears and things. And that was so fulfilling and meaningful to me. But then something shifted, and I was guided to this real estate path. And I was like, if I'm going to make this shift, I need to do it in the right way. And so I made a couple of commitments to myself. One was, I'm going to do what lights me up. I'm not going to do what doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do what doesn't feel like myself, because that's how I have to go about life. Otherwise, I'm just like miserable, and it feels like it's terrible. I don't know can you relate to that?
Oh God, yes, I can relate to it so much.
I found real estate fascinating, especially when it came to land. And I remember coming home from one of the classes learning about land and land stewardship, or what I call stewardship, but people call ownership, and just crying on the way home, thinking about this idea that, like, wow, this piece of land right here is mine to do whatever I want to do with it. And to me, that means like stewardship. Like I get to love on the trees and I get to love on the plants, and like I'm gonna have, I already had property, but I just started looking at it in a different way. Like these animals come to hang out on our land. And what happens when somebody buys land, they have this sacred responsibility. Like it's a big deal to have land. You can have whole ecosystems right there on your property. You can have a whole colony of bees, or you can have whole families of rabbits. We have tons of rabbits here in Colorado living. Like we have a tunnel that goes under our land from one property to the next, and we see the bunnies on either side, and it's so fun. And it's like we have this whole universe living right in our space that we take care of. So, that was my kind of insight into how important this is. And it's not just about numbers. It's not just about these transactions. Like there's something really big behind this. And that was just the beginning. That was before I really got into regenerative and paying attention to who are the original peoples of this land that cultivated this for thousands of years, and what are the native species that really want to live here and want to thrive here. But that was just like the tip of the iceberg for me. And that's when I started forming this idea of how I wanted to go about real estate. And I also I was also inspired by my family's history with land and with real estate related to hospitality and commercial and everything that you can do with a property. We have a long history of homesteading in our family. We also have a history of my great-great-grandfather bought 100 acres or so in New Hampshire, and he taught gymnastics to the Harvard girls from Harvard there, and did a summer gymnastics program in like the early 1900s. And then that got passed down through our family, through the generations. And the things that our family has done with that property really showed me experientially what can be done with a piece of property, and how so many people can thrive and be impacted positively from this property and from what people do with it.
Yeah, that's just so amazing. You just think about the generations and the generations and all the changes. And you hit on a point that I really want to have you make even more clear. And that is the difference between ownership and stewardship. Like we live in a society in Western culture that we own it, it's mine, aha. And stewardship has a different mentality. Would you kind of talk a little bit about how you experience the difference between I own the land or I'm a steward of the land?
Yeah. So, I mean, which it's interesting as a real estate person, a real estate agent, I don't really believe that we can own land. I mean, I think we can own a house. I think we can own a building, like humans built that structure. But the land is like it's a sacred being. It's a living organism, and it's allowing us to exist there. It's allowing these structures to exist. It's allowing us to exist. And everything that comes with the land is allowing us to exist. We have oxygen curated for us, like right there. We don't have to do anything to make this oxygen. It's like right there in front of us. We have the sun, we have the grass, we have the trees, we have the clouds, we have everything, to create a nice breeze that we get to enjoy. This is all curated for us by God or the divine or Mother Nature. And we get to show up and interact with that space. And we get to interact with it in a way that's in harmony. And most of us, I wasn't so aware of this before. I think it's very normal for us to not be aware of it, of how we're actually interacting with that space. And so one of my purposes with this is to just help raise awareness around that. And when people learn about it, they're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like, I never thought to like go find the tree on my property and start interacting with the tree and give offerings to the tree. Like, I have a tree that I visit. It's not on my property, but it's on my land. You know, it's part of my region that I live in. Across the street, there's a trail. And I help to steward that land, even though it's not mine. You know, I help to steward that. I walk the trails and I say prayers as I walk the trails. And when I get to my tree, I offer blessings and offering, you know, I give a little bit of my water or whatever, you know, to the tree. And it's like a powerful experience to do that. I mean, you just feel so connected with the space when you do stuff like that.
That's so great. I remember when I went to a workshop in Canada all about connecting with the land in different ways and everything, and in native healing ways from the indigenous culture of Canada. And I remember learning like all about how you approach a tree and allowing it to be there for you and all of those things. And I received a really big healing from a tree that's native to that area. And I'm like, this is the most powerful experience that there's really no words for. And it still sticks with me. Like, I still remember that tree and I have a picture of it, of course. And so I just can feel that energy of it. So, and we're talking about regenerative real estate, basically. And so define that for everyone who's listening to us, because we're already deviating from the typical, we're going to make a transaction and buy this land and we don't really care what's on it and we just concrete over it or we do whatever. And I call it like sleepwalking, being unconscious about the impact or effect of what it is that we're doing. And what you're talking about is developing awareness and being conscious about what we're doing and being a good steward. So share a little bit about regenerative real estate and what it is and what it means moving forward. Like, we're talking about, you know, different ways to build a legacy. We're talking about different ways to invest in Mother Earth, in our future, and in the generations to come. So can you speak to that, please?
Yes. So, you know, regenerative has a flexible meaning depending on who you are and where you're coming from. But the basic idea is that you're leaving things better than where you found them, and that you are having a positive that your real estate has a positive influence on the community. This is my team seeding change, and in my definition on this is that we make a positive impact on the community around us. So I work with some residential specializing in homesteads and also commercial real estate. And commercial real estate and homesteads, I would say too, are one of the most influential people of a community, because all kinds of people interact with us. So this real estate and business there has a positive impact on the community, a positive impact on the land. Like, the ecosystem is better because of what we're doing with that real estate. And it's a benefit to the economy. So it's not extractive, like most real estate is extractive. This is actually giving back. So just our existence with these real estate projects is giving back to everyone we interact with.
See, I think that's beautiful, because it's like you're able to give back, you're able to be financially taken care of, and then the earth and the land and the community are also taken care of. So it's like a win-win all the way around, the block. And I think a lot of people still sometimes think it's a one-way street, when really what we're talking about here is expanding that understanding into something that's much more user-friendly, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, this can apply to any situation. Something that I feel really strongly about is that I want to be able to include anybody and everybody in this type of a mission. So say somebody wants to have an office building, you can still be regenerative with an office building. You just take on a different way. Like, you don't have to do agriculture on your property, or agriculture may not be the right word, but you don't have to like grow a lot of things on your property in order to be regenerative. And maybe it's like you grow some things, but you're very selective about what that is. to have a positive impact on the land. There's a lot of different ways to approach this. It's focusing on that basic principle of giving more than we take and making things better than how we found them.
And that reminds me of the indigenous understanding of reciprocity, right? Of making sure the give and take is in balance, whatever that means.
Exactly.
Depending on the situation. So if somebody's listening to us and they're going, yeah, but I don't have a lot of acreage, or I don't have a lot of land, or I don't have the money to buy commercial real estate, or even like a big house, but say they have like a smaller house, or maybe, like a duplex or something where they have part of the lot is there. So they have a little bit of land, but it's not like a lot of land. Could they still participate in a regenerative real estate kind of idea?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the first, I'm thinking of like the duplex idea, because that's, where somebody might have the biggest challenge with it, or feel like they do. The first step, in my opinion, for that would be to do some research and find out who are the original peoples of that land. And just for our own awareness, what kind of prayers did they say? What kind of offerings would they give? What are the native plants and trees and species, animals there? And are there little things we can do with a small amount of land to help to encourage and invite those native species to our space? And as far as, knowing who the original peoples are, what it does is it invites a consciousness shift. So once we have that consciousness shift and we realize, oh my gosh, this land is sacred, like we have 1/8 of an acre. I think we're on 1/8 of an acre. It's very small. Like I grew up on 10 acres. So this to me is like, oh my gosh, it's like a postage stamp.
Right.
But this is sacred land. And what it does is it allows me to go out into my community, go on walks and look at different things in my walk. And like, there's these 5 cottonwood trees that grow in like it's almost like a little park, a little green space along my walk. And I see that with a new lens of understanding who was here before us and understanding what this land used to be. I see those trees now and I say, wow, this is an ancient grove. This is an ancient tree grove. And these are like the elders that are like, that they are taking care of this land. They're protecting this space with their roots and with their energy and with their presence. And so it brings like a higher level of respect. And so like when I'm one of those people that always likes to pick up trash when I see it, but now it's even more, it's like more meaningful. It's like, this is sacred space. Like I get excited about like picking up trash and stuff like that. And my walks outside become more like a prayer because I just have this understanding and a knowing of the sacredness of the land I'm walking on.
Right. So it's an act of reverence, right?
Yeah.
That's really great. So now you've talked about knowing about the original peoples, and how does all of this play into somebody who is thinking about leaving a legacy, is thinking about the generations to come? Like I've always been trained and I always believe that we think 7 generations down the line. Like is what I'm doing today going to benefit the next 7 generations, which most people don't even think beyond themselves often. But if we went down 7 generations, how would this idea serve in that way to help somebody build a legacy?
There's a lot of ways. The first thing that popped into my mind when you said that was this really cool place called the Trapp Family Lodge. Have you heard of that?
No.
You've probably read or watched The Sound of Music?
Oh, yes.
So that family came and settled in the United States and Vermont, in Stowe, Vermont, and they created this hotel called the Trapp Family Lodge. And my family has had a timeshare there for a couple of generations. And so I grew up going there and I've just watched it evolve over the years. And they've passed that down through the generations to the different Von Trapp heirs. And what's interesting is that they've turned it. So it used to be kind of a typical resort place from what I remember. And the next generations have made it much more regenerative so that all of the food comes from the land, basically. Like they grow a lot of the veggies, the produce on the land. They have cattle. I think they have beehives. They tap maple trees. They brew their own beer and wine. So all of that comes from the land, and it's like the most beautiful place you've ever been. So when you go there, you're like uplifted and enriched and invigorated and energized for, when you go back, and you have that special connection with the land when you're there. But somebody could invest in like one of those big chain hotels, or they could invest in something like this that's like really working with the community in very dynamic ways and is really making people's lives better. Like, I don't know, when I go to those big chain hotels, I don't necessarily feel like my life is better. My life is better. I just feel like I like spent the night somewhere. And so that's an example of how you're making a positive impact that's going to, if we do it right, when we do it right, these types of investments last many generations down the road because they're so special that people, want to take them over. And when we do it right, we teach people how to take them over and how to continue that forward.
Oh, that's really fun. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, like passing on not only the property, but the lessons and the teaching and the ways,
Right.
I think that gets lost a lot in this culture. And I think it's time that we start remembering that there are things that we can teach generation to generation that serve everybody,
Yeah. And another piece to this, Dianne, is so there are some other projects. The Trapp Family Lodge just came to me because I grew up there and, it made such an impact on me. And, it did help to contribute to my legacy with my children. And there are some other hotels. So I specialize in hotels. So I talk about that a lot. There are some other hotels that are doing some very innovative practices with bringing spiritual practice and really focusing on healing and developing the land and education and things like that, like retreat centers. And basically, these are experiences that people can come and stay at and basically learn from and bring back to their families. Like, wow, they had these really interesting toilets there. Like, what if in our next house we had a toilet like that? Or like there's one that we're working on in Mexico that's right on the coast. And so it's basically like an island, and the power is going to come from buoys in the water. And that's so unique. Like, who has seen that in person? But when people go there to stay and have a beautiful vacation, they get to see, oh my gosh, these lights turn on because of these buoys out in the water. And that makes an impression on somebody, especially when there's children and they see that. And then they get to like learn from that. Like, how does that actually work?
Oh, that's cool. I want to go there and check out how that actually works. And wait a second, I'm showing up. So how do you use your intuition and your empathic sensitivity in your work?
There's not really any way not to. It's like, so that's part of my commitment that I made to myself was I'm going to do this from a place of joy, and I'm going to do whatever lights me up. So when I'm in that place of being lit up by what I'm doing, my intuition's always pretty high. And so I have this thing where I just find like the hidden gems that like nobody knows about, but they're right in front of her face. And I find those because I'm tuned in, because I'm like doing something that really lights me up and gets me excited. And just that like vibration of excitement, it heightens the intuition. And another aspect to that is communicating with the land. And it's really interesting to see the energetic shifts that happen with these land transactions and to see how it's always the exact space for the exact person at the exact timing. And they always learn exactly what they need to through the process. There's always some kind of lesson that comes through, and the land is often healing for the people. It's like we as a team attract exactly what they're really needing in life at that time.
Yeah, that's really fun. I think that when we pay attention on that level, there's so much awe and wonder that comes with it all. That's really amazing. So I want to shift a little bit more to like your personal life as a gifted human. And you have a beautiful family and you have a great career. And so what are some things you do as a gifted person to take care of yourself? Like what kind of self-care does Sarah do?
Gosh, this has evolved so much over the years because it's a constant discovery of like, what does Sarah need?
And it changes too,
It changes. Yeah. Something that I learned, well, something I always knew about myself is that I have a ton of energy. I used to be one of these people that would get 4 hours of sleep a night. And now is like awesome. Like I would stay up all night and just have a blast, like a party with myself doing projects, and then I would wake up early and have another party, like just nonstop. And my body didn't really like that so much. It caused me to get, just get sick and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, finally, after many years of doing that, I got the memo. And I'm like, okay, and so the other thing is because I have so much energy and I just love working on projects, I would almost like overdo things and overthink things because I just want to like do it and do it and do it and do it. And then, but it didn't need that much, because when you're tuned in, you can be so effective that you just need a little touch and it's done.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I need a different outlet. Like I need to like expend my energy someplace else. And I started getting into fitness. And I started, my husband cycles. He's a cycler. He mountain bikes and road bikes. And I started getting into that with him. And then we go to the gym in the morning at 5:15. And that requires us to go to bed at 8:30. So that's kind of a cool thing. We figured out a cool routine where it's like, okay, I need to just shut everything off by like 7:30 so that we can be in bed on time to wake up on time. Because, if we don't get enough sleep, we're going to really be dragging butt in the gym and we don't want that, And so just figuring out that rhythm has been really helpful and to really like utilize all of this energy that I have. And also taking naps. Like I took a nap right before our talk here. And it was like, just feels so good to lie down and allow myself to take a nap. And that's really important too. And I also take a walk. So we go to the gym, come back, and then I go out for a walk. And that's when I do my kind of sacred meditation lands routine, where I get to say hi to my tree and all of that and just eating really well. But those, the gym, the walk, the going to bed early, and hydration, those are things that really have supported just the unique way that I operate in the world.
That's really great. I can picture it all. Now, I'm sure you all are absolutely loving listening to Sarah like I am. I mean, I could just go on and on and on and on. So all of her contact information is in the show notes. And so I suggest you follow her on social media and check her out on her website and see how maybe you can be inspired and or be part of regenerative real estate and the whole idea of raising your consciousness with leaving a legacy that's a little bit different maybe than we thought of before. So I have some more questions, but I just wanted to remind everybody to check the show notes because I really think that what you're doing is amazing and it's helpful for people to have ideas of something they can do that maybe they didn't know about before. Right? So you're a gifted person and you have gifted children and your husband's gifted. So we have a whole gifted family and you're all gifted differently. So what are some things you do to help decrease the stress level for yourself when it comes to work, mom, wife, kids that really need different things, like all of these different things? You balance lots of things. So what do you do for stress management?
One of the biggest things is my walk in the morning. It's like 3 miles and it just is such a good way to start the day with fresh air, sunshine, although not so much these days with daily savings, but, fresh air, nature, just this quiet time to myself,
Mhm.
because once I get back, it's like the whirlwind for the rest of the day until I go to bed. And so that's my gift to myself, is giving myself that hour to do that. And then I also have, right before bed, I have a practice that I do. It's like an energy meditation practice where I just work with my energy, and I say some prayers to just help me energetically stay aligned.
Mhm.
And we're all very empathic. And so it helps to just clear anything that, we may energetically have taken on in the day. And that's extremely helpful. Like when I do that consistently, my life is just a freaking magic show. It's like, just, it's amazing the kinds of miracles and things like that show up when my energy is in balance and aligned like that.
Yeah, I think alignment is so important. Totally.
Yeah.
So I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything you wanted to share that I have not already asked you about, or you haven't shared about, that you think would be interesting, or just that you want to say?
Um, well, I think, the big thing with all of this, and my big lesson has been the importance of really being in alignment with who we truly are. And it's so easy to get caught up in, this is what I should be doing, or this is what
Mhm.
this is what everybody says I should be doing. And that can create such inner turmoil that maybe people have gotten used to. And so maybe people don't realize it's there. But if you have that sense of like, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I was taught to do, really tune in and say, what does my heart know to do related to like your career or your health or your legacy, and just listen to that and allow that to guide you into your next steps, because it's amazing how everything can unfold so naturally and so easily and joyfully when we're living in that alignment.
Yes. Oh, amen. Totally. That's really great. So I know that you've had a lot of cool life experiences, and so these are just a couple really fun questions.
Yeah.
And the first one is, what is the most memorable food you've ever eaten?
Okay. Well, the thing that's coming to my mind is conch.
Oh, yeah.
On my honeymoon, we went to a little island called Nevis,
Mhm.
and it's all just like fish, And I got a conch, and it was like a terrible texture. And I was like, I don't know if I like this or not, but it was definitely one of the most memorable foods.
Oh, that's great. I love conch. I've eaten it a lot, racing boats to Mexico and things, but
Oh yeah,
we had the natives preparing it for us, and it was
yeah,
so
yeah,
tender and soft and wonderful, and it was almost like ceviche the way they made it. And then I went to one of the hotel restaurants and things on the island later and ordered it, thinking it was going to be that good, and it was not.
Okay, see, I think you got the better chefs involved.
So it was like when you have the natives who are out there diving for it and they know what they're
Yeah,
doing, it's a whole different reality than a chef somewhere that's separated from really what it's all about. Like, so,
yeah.
that's kind of that lesson. So I just laugh and go, yeah, I know that.
All right, so let me so on a good memory of my best like memory of
Mm.
food is when we were in Mexico, and we got it was garlic butter shrimp, and it was like these giant shrimp that they caught right off of the restaurant, right off the pier. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. And so the final question before we end the show is, if we were going to put a billboard up that the whole world was going to see with Sarah's message on it for everyone to see, what would you want them to read?
I think it would be listen.
Ooh,
I think
that's a
that's
good
it. I
one.
think it would just be listen, like dot, dot, dot.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. I was just seeing the little dots. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I love that.
Just like the blank, just the words with like
Listen,
blue background, the words listen.
I love it. That is perfect. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on Someone Gets Me today and taking time out of your busy life to help educate all of us and inspire us with a really unique way to build a legacy, and also a really cool way as a gifted person to have a really great career. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dianne. This is really fun.
Remember, everybody, put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. And as Sarah says, listen. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne and Sarah saying, be well.
Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episode's, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.